Why did Blood Meridian's Glanton Gang end up failing? Because when we look at the end of the novel, most of the characters are dead. And of course, the judge will live and dance forever. But why did the general enterprise end up failing? And today, I'm going to connect alternative interpretations of the title, the epilogue, and events in the story to help us answer that question. And speaking of living forever, did you guys think I was going to continue covering David Foster Wallace and other authors forever? Have you guys maybe wondered, where has Ian been? He made us a promise that he is going to release thousands of videos on Cormac McCarthy. And of course, your boy is going to do that. But on Monday, I'm going to one-up that and give you guys the greatest surprise in the Cormac McCarthy community history by giving to you unreleased interviews from Cormac McCarthy that you can find nowhere else. You can't go anywhere on the internet or find them in any book. And even better than that, in these interviews, McCarthy speaks candidly about Blood Meridian, about his writing, about his favorite books, about his childhood. So many gaps that I've talked about on this channel endlessly. Like, what happened during this time? I now know, and you are about to know on Monday. So at 8 a.m. Pacific time on Monday, be here on Right Conscious for the start of the Cormac McCarthy revolution I have been talking about. But when we are returning, let's return now to the Glanton Gang and the difference between space and place, because there are many places in America now, but there are almost none, unless maybe if we go to Alaska and a couple other areas, wide open spaces where you can live and act as you wish. And if we go to the meridian of the American West, when Blood Meridian is taking place, there is a final opportunity for men such as, who are in the Glanton Gang to be able to live in wild spaces. And there are many different interpretations of the epilogue. And I'm not saying that this is the definitive version. We've talked about many other versions before. But one of the most common ones is a historical analysis of it, saying that those men are putting up barbed wire fences. Because when we jump in McCarthy's bibliography to the Border Trilogy, it is a critique of the barbed wire fenced culture, the death fences, as it was called in the American West. And when we look at the history of the Southwest, even right before the Glanton Gang in 1832, when Mexico started to ask settlers from Virginia and other places to create a wall of white people to protect them from the Comanches, it was all about movement back then also. And when we see the Glanton Gang and see the YouTuber and see yourself, movement and leaping is the most important thing. And now, unfortunately, we can only leap and move in spaces within our own soul. But the Glanton Gang had a unique opportunity in the American and Mexican Southwest to move freely. And what comes with this movement? Well, one kind of meta thing is that all throughout Blood Meridian, there are very few, if not any, burial scenes. When we look at things like the Border Trilogy and other McCarthy novels like Suttree, he does kind of make this kind of mythological or even psychological deal about burials. But in Blood Meridian, we get babies hanging from mesquite trees. We have people left in canyons. We have people skinned alive. Anything that you can imagine, but no one gets buried. And these are white individuals who, claim to be Christian or whatever, but that's because they are encased in a flow. And when we look at the third epigraph of Blood Meridian, which talks about the first scalp skull from 300,000 years ago, that was an act of war. But when we finally reach the meridian of that era, because, not many people are getting scalped today, but the meridian of the scalping era is when it was used as a receipt, used as a commerce by filibusters. But when we examine the first 2/3 of the novel, the gang is very successful in keeping a lot of its members alive. Of course, some people go down, yet it is almost sunshine and rainbows until we kind of reach the meridian, literal meridian. You should go check out my video on how Blood Meridian is a palindrome. If you don't know what I mean by that, when they reach Chihuahua City and kind of cash in the scalps for the first time. And as the novel progresses, the Glanton Gang does wear out their welcome. They cash in one more time and are moving around. But eventually, McCarthy makes a deviation from actual history. And I want to help you guys understand Blood Meridian at the deepest level. And if you guys don't already know, I run a Substack where I am currently building out a 100-hour Blood Meridian course. We are on hour, I think, 4 right now, but I am dropping new videos every single week. And if you join the Substack, you get access to my 10 plus hours on David Foster Wallace. I'm going to start building a writing course over there. And I already have, I think, over 25 hours on Cormac McCarthy and his other novels already. So I'll put the link down in the description below. But something we've been talking about over there, because I'm priming us to be able to understand Blood Meridian, is that McCarthy makes a deviation in Blood Meridian around, the 2/3 part of the novel when the kid goes out on his own and is separated from the group and is in the snow. None of that actually happened. So the gang's prospects of scalping started to dry up, and it looked like they were going to have to eventually leave Mexico because Glanton was starting to become a wanted man. So they started to look for El Dorado. Literally, Glanton was saying, "We are going to look for a city of gold," and they came across these kind of stone cities and thought that they were going to become rich because the Mexica down in now Mexico City and Tenochtitlan, they had told people for centuries at that point that hundreds of miles to the north, kind of in the Laguna Pueblo area of the Southwest, there was this El Dorado. And who knows if they thought that was true or they were just trying to get them off their asses because all the white people wanted was gold. But Glanton was still believing in that myth, and they were searching around for El Dorado. And eventually, they snaked their way up to the Grand Canyon, which doesn't make it to Blood Meridian, down to the Gila River with the Pimas, and then to the ferry. And at this point, their prospects of going back to Mexico and living this life in these open spaces is gone. America is starting to turn into a place. And sure, the Comanche in 1848 were not taken care of yet. But that was kind of the point, that Mexico was starting to, get some military presence in, northern Mexico and, rolling around with a gang of 30 to 40 men that, weren't a bunch of intelligent Indians like the Comanches who knew what they were doing and had access to the resources. That kind of enterprise wasn't as good of a deal anymore. And so in the spaces they could do that, in the Great Plains, they did not want to be doing that over there because they would obviously get fucked up by the Comanche or the Kiowa or whatever other tribe. So in the historical account, when the Glanton gang reaches the ferry, Glanton tells everyone, "This is our El Dorado." And when the gang reaches the ferry, though, they don't make the necessary changes to fit civilization. And this is where we're starting to see their downfall. Because the gang could be properly seen, as antinomian. They are, living out and transcending the laws of, moral laws of the land. That's what white people do down in the Southwest at that time. Even, Cortez and everyone, they rose above moral law by saying we're creating a Christian world so we can pillage and rape and do whatever. But what's interesting, when Brown goes to San Diego during the ferry scene, if you guys remember, he's trying to buy a shotgun. Then he tells the guy, "Saw it off." And the guy doesn't understand why. And this happened to me today. So I'm a high school teacher and I bring my own laptop to work every day because I don't want to use the school computer. I like having all my things in one place, like my files and organization. So I just put the computer in the closet, and I had to have some guy come in to fix my IT today, or an IT guy to fix some technology in my room today. And he was mind blown that I wasn't using the school computer. And he was arguing with me in front of my class, like, "Where is it? Can I see it?" And I'm showing, he's like, "Why aren't you using it? These are good computers." And I was like, "Bro, I got a $2,000 laptop right here. That's what I'm filming on right now. Like, this is my work hub." And this guy was so salty about all this. In his IT report, he wrote like 3 paragraphs on why I should have my computer anyway. But that's what the shopkeeper was like, because on the barrel of the gun, if I remember correctly, there's like gold on it. But Brown is like, "I don't need that. I just want the gun." He's transcended the general values and these things of society and just wants this weapon for killing. And around the ferry scene, Tovine says, quote, "You wouldn't think that a man would run plumb out of country out here, would you?" And what does he mean by country? He doesn't mean the United States of America, obviously. He's talking about spaces. At the end of All the Pretty Horses, this isn't a spoiler. John Grady Cole says, when talking about America, "This isn't my country. I don't know where it is. I don't know what happens to country." This idea, space first place, is huge in all of McCarthy's novels, dating back to The Orchard Keeper. And I think McCarthy, watching his father as an attorney of eminent domain for the Tennessee Valley Authority, starting to make Knoxville and the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, and through damming certain rivers, that whole area a place. And I also have I should have mentioned this at the start. I have compiled a free PDF of 144 of Cormac McCarthy's favorite books and authors. Yes, some of this is all from various sources, including some of the unreleased interview segments I'll be talking about next week. But if you want to get that free PDF, the link is down in the description below alongside the course link. So I would love if you are still here to go get that PDF because it will expand your to read list almost immediately with honestly some really great work. McCarthy is for sure one of the most eccentric and wide read authors I've ever come across. Like anyway, you'll see. And you'll see in future videos when I kind of cover all the books in there. Anyway, but I also on the course have a video on this kind of same topic that I think's over an hour long. But one of the main things we talk about over there is how it's not called Blood Meridians because if we look at the gang, if we look and think as physical meridians that they're going over the 99th or the 98th meridian, well, they're going through blood meridians. So what's the blood meridian? Well, it seems to be something more spiritual and somehow connects the country. And I won't get into the answers here. I'll save that for those who go to the course. But when we return to the demise of the Glanton gang at the ferry, what have they become? What have they started to do? Well, Glanton ends up dead in a bed. He dies inside. How ironic is that? After all these escapades by Glanton, he ends up dead inside. They've taken wives. They've become domesticated. They've domesticated themselves with currency, with wives, and with shelter. And that's kind of the antithetical nature of the Glanton gang. And McCarthy tries to drive this point home by what? Well, the idiot. I think her name is Sarah. Pretty sure. Sorry. It's 9 p.m. right now. Been a long day. But Sarah tries to domesticate the idiot by putting him in clothes and all these other things. They start to build fortifications. So there's this general push, and that eventually leads to the demise. And this is kind of, once again, a broader theme that McCarthy actually gets into. Blood Meridian is also the meridian of his literary career in terms of how he writes, what he does, and then eventually to this new Western mindset because McCarthy was already juggling the entire Border trilogy, The Passenger, and No Country for Old Men when he was writing Blood Meridian. So he knew where his career was going. I mean, the only things that he didn't have on his plate were The Counselor and The Road. So that's why I like to read McCarthy's works as kind of a series. I mean, if you want to get really deep, there actually honestly has, even from starting from The Orchard Keeper to The Passenger, they have this beautiful arc that we will eventually get into later, probably when we cover all the books on the course. So let me reach out to you guys right now. Why do you think the Glanton gang eventually met its demise? Like, what mistakes were made? Obviously, they weren't very honest and they could have got the scalps and gone out of the city and not abused all the Chihuahuans. There could have been different decisions made, but obviously I think them stopping and becoming domesticated is the biggest indicator to why they died. So thank you guys for being here. You will see a lot more Blood Meridian and other videos coming soon. And until the next one, see the black screen.